Hello, everyone. Good evening, good now, good whatever time that is in your zone. Thank you for joining me. This is our Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra's regular weekly teachings on Tuesday nights that is now being aired on Facebook and YouTube Live. So please share not only all your friends, even if one of your friends get to listen, hear this, it may make a lot of difference to them. So please share those things. And that's the whole idea. That's why our benefactors have been encouraged to do this so that more people can benefit, because people are often stuck in their own place or somewhere, but now with the technology they can all watch it so long as one of their friends shares them. Otherwise they have no way of knowing the Dharma. So with this good reason, please share and spread the word, so to speak. And I will start by doing short refuge prayer and for immeasurables, and then followed by a short meditation on Heart Sutra. So first is taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, reconfirming our amazing kind of good fortune to have the Dharma in our life, and relish that and make commitment to practice non-violence and compassion and loving kindness, tolerance, and so on. So those are the meanings of having refuge. Buddha Dhamma Sangha Aitere Future Lajame Bhavaja Ajeve Handala Ashare Vada Vajuebis Endabo Dadarama Sangha Aitere Lajame Bhavaja Ajeve Handala Ashare Vada Vajuebis Endabo Dadarama Sangha Aitere Lajame Bhavaja Ajeve Handala Ashare Vada Vajuebis. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion to those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion to those near and far. Now I'll recite the short one verse on Heart Sutra, paying homage to great Prajnaparamita, and then recite the Heart Sutra mantra several times. And you also meditate on that. Reciting the Heart Sutra mantra and meditating on that is called profound illumination. It will greatly clarify all your fixations, wrong views, because they are all can be corrected by that meditation, and you can just completely clean the board and have a fresh start. Don't think what is the board is wrong, and as you just keep looking at it, just erase it, I'm not denying their existence, but see it as impermanent and transient, and it's no longer the same as a result of that. And then you just wake up. Mosam Jimmy Jira Baraja, Majimangananga, Sozorari, Jejo, Tuzunja, Ulazanzalo, Engade, Parasangade, Bodhisattva. 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 Yaya Paman Drujana, Dawa Chiyam Aleba, Teya Salanga Parajo, Zobe Chanju Jubala, Chidanange Zawai, Pardu Juba Damjago, Nyavari Shivan Zadu So. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for taking your time and being part of our community and the community of the Buddha, the Sangha. Being part of the Sangha means you have to communicate. You don't stay in one Sangha called our lineage, our school. We're all one Sangha, Sangha of the whole world, one family, one world. His Holiness Dalai Lama calls it. So that's why I share the Dharma as far as you can, So therefore, it's good to be part of this. So we are currently going through the 6th chapter on the Bodhisattva's way of life. We started last week, so we first read the 20 verses from the first 6th chapter, and tonight we're going to go start from the verse number 21, and I'm translating directly from the Tibetan, so that's why it's good for me too, and also it's more reliable, and I can therefore access this language as I go through. Last week we talked about that being able to conquer and destroy your hatred is the most worthwhile hardship to encounter. People encounter many hardships: the cold, the wind, the height, the distance, the long hours of work, or whatever they do, just to get an additional pay. They say, "Oh, Saturday time and a half," they call it, time and a half, they may get another $20 extra on each hour or something. But even then, they're able to they go very early and they're very injured. But here, if you use such kind of suffering enduring capacity to conquer your anger, that is the most effective, conquest of all conquerors, because then you're truly victorious. You're truly victorious. But otherwise, you're just killing corpses. They say it's useless. You don't need to kill corpses; they're already dead. So all the other activities are basically not so useful. So try to conquer your anger. So that was where we stopped. So why you should take time to conquer your anger is that when you conquer your anger, you will need you have to tackle and confront your sufferings. So it says that furthermore there are many qualities in the sufferings. Usually we despise sufferings, we reject sufferings. That's the people who don't know that. People who don't know the quality of suffering, they reject suffering, they denounce suffering, they run away as the suffering is a thing or people or activities. They don't realize suffering is in their own mind. It's dirt on their own mind. So if you're able to work with your own suffering, there are quality with your sufferings. When you have suffering, what it does, the quality of suffering is that you will be saddened. You will be saddened by suffering. That's not a quality you have to seek. People are sad. Lots of people are sad. But you look at the sadness of the sufferings that you have, because it will remove your arrogance. Arrogance is a big problem. There are more suffering can be caused by arrogance, saying you have no suffering type of thing. But actually, if you endure your suffering, it will enable you to overcome the cause of the suffering. Pride is the cause of suffering. If you don't want the result, don't create the causes. Now, if you endure the suffering, it enables you to remove the more future cause of suffering, which is the arrogance, and that would be amazing. It's you're able to get rid of future problems. So that's not the only quality. That's not the only quality of suffering to remedy and remove your arrogance. It becomes cause to engender compassion to sentient beings languishing in samsara. So you develop compassion to those who are saying poor me, and then instead of seeing the quality of suffering, they think they shouldn't have suffering, and they don't want suffering, but the way they react to it is making it worse, So therefore you develop compassion. Poor thing, they don't know how to uncause their sufferings, They don't know the effect, but they're creating the causes of it, And they don't want the dust falling on their house, but they keep throwing dust in the air, So that's why you develop compassion to this, not because you're developing compassion, not because you have no suffering. No, you are combating with your suffering efficaciously, so that you are actually overcoming your pride. You can see yourself in the same boat as others when you have this. You can see yourself and other sentient beings in the same boat of suffering. Yourself being able to practicing tolerance, it overcomes your pride, and those other sentient beings who don't have that skill, you develop compassion too. And then it will empower you to restrain non-virtuous deeds. Non-virtuous deeds is cause of the suffering. So you can't deny suffering when you're creating the cause of it. So it empowers you naturally to restrain the cause of suffering. Cause of suffering might be your bad mouth, or your aggression, or your retaliation, whatever you're doing. You don't know how to restrain that, because that's the cause of suffering. This will come back as a huge load of suffering very soon. And if you know how to self-control and restrain the suffering, restrain the non-virtuous deeds, the restraining of the non-virtuous deeds is not just restraining non-virtuous deeds. It is virtuous deeds. Restraining non-virtuous deeds is virtuous. It's virtuous. You are fond of the virtue of being able to restrain non-virtues. When you can now practice this, so therefore you are practicing tolerance, not because it is a religious Buddhist thing you should do, not logical thing. Well, there are many lists of benefit. It overcomes your pride. It engenders compassion to others. It restrains you from non-virtuous deeds, and it makes you productive to accumulate virtue. Look at the 4. Each of these 4 lines teach you the 4 different qualities to cultivate when you practice patience. So that's why it said at the very beginning, there is no virtue like patience. So the opposite is true. There is no non-virtue like that of impatience. So that's what the point was made. And this Padmakara group's translation, it says, suffering has its worth. I was saying suffering has its qualities. Through sorrow, pride is driven out. Yeah? And pity felt for those who wander in samsara. Evil is avoided, goodness seems to be delightful. Yeah. So that's what it enables you to do that. That's verse number 21. Now 22 is that Tipalaso dungaji, the suffering of say hepatitis or bile problem. Junior Chela Mitrova, you are not angry with your bile and other humors, which are the fertile source of your sufferings. Junior Chela Mitrova, you're not angry at the your own sort of your own kidney or whatever physical health problem is. You're not angry at your bile and your kidney problems. Why are you angry at people? Why should you resent my fellow sentient beings? It seems all of these things are conditions. Sentient beings are conditioned for your suffering. Sentient beings are condition your suffering, and your own bile and other bad humors in the body also they're both equal cause of suffering. Why are you so biased to be angry at sentient beings? You're not angry at your bile. So when you have a bile problem, why are you not angry at your bile? When you have a bile problem, you go and get the medicine. You pay a huge amount of money to get the medicine, but you don't try to get rid of your bile, do you? So you have to work with that. Likewise, why you are so impatient with sentient beings? Because sentient beings are just like a condition of your problem. So therefore, you shouldn't be biased against sentient beings, biased towards your suffering, like the physical illness or the bile problem. That's the next. That's the verse number 22. Then just like not desiring these illness of your hepatitis, he's talking bile, but let's say hepatitis problem or whatever problem you have, without wanting this disease, yet you are getting this disease. Yeah, you're getting diseases even though you do not look for, you don't want it for, but yet that's what you have. Likewise, without wanting this affliction, likewise you have this affliction. So not only yours, say someone is very angry and you can't stand them. You shouldn't think they don't want to be angry. They don't want to be so short-tempered. But yet they are just controlled by their anger, and therefore you should know. They just. Even though they don't seek anger, they don't seek short temper, but that's exactly they get. So they must be totally conditioned. They are completely a loss of control. So you should feel pity to those, including yourself. You should feel pity. I don't want to be angry, but yet I become just that. Sentient beings are completely tormented and suppressed, and they seize by this condition. Alas. So you're able to read the suffering and its causes. Sentient beings don't want it, but that's exactly what they're getting. Just like you don't want to get sick, but exactly still you get sick. Sentient beings are worse, They don't want any affliction. They don't want to be angry. They don't want to be jealous. They don't want to be miserly. They don't want to be lazy. But that's exactly lazy. People who don't want to be lazy are lazy. People who don't want to be behind, they are behind. People who don't want to be angry over something, they're just angry at it. Why? Because they all are not able to control their mind. When they lost the mind to the afflictions, and then they are like that. Even they have no intention to become angry. They have no intention to become angry. Sentient beings are automatically become angry, They don't have any intention to be angry, but yet that's what exactly they become. They have no intention to create that problem. They didn't intend to be angry. They didn't say, I'm going to go to work today and lose my temper and I break all those things. Wait a minute, everybody watch. Nobody says that. But they don't have any intention to become like that, to produce those anger, to produce those temper, or to show that drama and make themselves full. But they don't have intention to become full. But yet, their anger just erupts in them, and they just become like that. So what is this? This is Shantideva wants us to think. The kind of helplessness of sentient beings who have no dharma, who have no refuge, who are blinded by their own affliction and bad habits. They don't want to be angry. They don't want to be saying harsh words. They don't want to upset their loved ones. But they just don't know how not to, because they're so overwhelmed by their habitual pattern and afflictions. So don't you feel pity for sentient beings when they're like that? You should. So as a Bodhisattva practitioner, when somebody is angry, you should think, oh, he didn't intend to. Because when we don't know that, we think he deliberately did it to me. And we just get so caught up in that story as the person did deliberately to harm me. That's what people say. He did this to me to harm me. Did he know he was harming you? He didn't even know what he was doing to himself. Come on, give yourself a break to think differently. Then you really live alive. Then you're really worth giving yourself that dinner. Otherwise, why feed you? Why clothe yourself? You're not doing the job. You're not doing the job. So think like that. When somebody is making fool of themselves, just feel pity. He doesn't have any intention to fool himself like this and make himself a mockery, make himself like that. Yet due to the sway of the affliction and unfortunate causes of condition, and due to not having dharma, poor thing. This is what he's going through. I have been there like that myself. I now know how to think like this and look at them with kindness. Because otherwise, we also, without wanting to be angry, we are angry. We don't even know we're angry, we're angry. So, exactly, that's what's happening to them. So that's what's happening. See, this is physics of suffering you are studying. Why the sentient beings suffer or our short-temperedness without knowing they're wanting to be short-tempered, without knowing they're becoming short-tempered. So, when you have the benefit of witnessing that, then you will radiate kindness, won't you? You will radiate compassion. Yeah, whatever fault and problems they are manifesting, as well as any varieties of wrongdoing that is consummated, all of this has been conditioned by many, many factors. Nobody have any control. People just completely lost the control to the sway of many causes and conditions. And when you say this due to the sway of causes and condition, you're not pointing your finger to him. He did this to me, to harm me. That kind of attitude, people say that, oh, he did this behind my back. He hurt me. People say that. Ridiculous. Come on, he didn't have any intention to do that. There were a lot of mixture of unfortunate set of sufferings and problems. You should think like that. Then you wouldn't victimize yourself or make other people responsible. You're not taking any responsibility by thinking like that. Practicing patience is not a religious virtue. Practicing patience is a very scientific way to understand the psychology of suffering. And therefore, developing a psychology of how to heal the suffering of sentient beings, which they least want. Sentient beings are so lost, so confused. They have degrees. They read books. They write books. But they don't know how to manage their own thoughts. So that's the problem. That's what the Buddhism is to inform and reform us how to think reflexively, not think the problem and the cause of the problem out there, and try to understand the physics and psychology of the suffering that is being consummated. Then you are understanding really, then your capacity to practice compassion and I would say tolerance is not because you happen to be good mood or because you had a promotion or something like that. You have a spiritual realization. You have a real awakening in you. Yeah. You have really woken up. All of these things are caused by many things, like the domino effect, poor thing, they don't have any control, self-control, because they are forced by this. He's forced by that, she's forced by that. Because of that, don't entirely think of him. When you do that, that's what this materialist society do. They try to see who's the culprit, who is responsible. Let's expose him. Let's see, highlight this. We can't tolerate such people like this. This kind of very, very aggressive and intolerant society makes a very intolerant society. But if we know how to understand the sufferings and the people who are in the middle of the suffering, we therefore, they have a saying, be hard on the problem, soft on the person. Yeah, that's exactly what patience is. Be hard on the problem, hard on the cause of the problem. That is the understanding. When you have misunderstanding, you will not handle the problem. You will be hard on the people. You have no one left around you, and your problem has never been solved. Wherever you go, you take that problem with you. You always talk about, how come I keep attracting these kind of people, type of thing. well, you are the one who has the beehive. Of course, it attract all the bees. You are the one who make the beehive. So it will attract all those bees, whether honey or non-honey, who knows? So therefore, it's not the other person. Other person and yourself are cause and conditions. Don't think that neither you or somebody is independently a cause of it. Rawang yopa mayno, wonderful saying is Rawang yopa mayno. He has no independence. He has no independence, or he has no freedom, because he's completely wallowed. He was completely consumed by the affliction, ignorance, self-grasping, wrong view. He just completely lost the plot. Think like that. Don't think it's entirely his fault. There were many, many causes and conditions that he had no way of stopping, like the domino effect. You don't see that this domino fell because of this domino being here. No, all the other domino fell. Therefore, it fell. Because none of the other domino fell, this doesn't fall. So, see the domino effect. In Buddhism, we call dependent origination. Domino effect. So don't put next time your domino too close to that one. Then never mind all the domino fall. You alone standing. That'll look very impressive. Yeah, everybody's falling around you. You alone standing tall among all these fallen friends. What would be the benefit of that? You should be there to stop everyone falling by your not blaming. That's the whole idea. But when the causes and conditions all come together, all those causes and conditions come together, nobody makes a mind, I'm going to produce this result to him. The causes and conditions come, it doesn't got a mind of its own. It doesn't have a mind of the wind doesn't have a mind of its own saying to break your window or turn over the car or let's go over there. He's got a car just under the shade. We can blow it out. The hurricane doesn't send it to you. You know, they have no intention to destroy your car or your house or like that. When just like the hurricane comes, even when it produced the destruction, it doesn't think I did it. You know, it hasn't got a mind of its own. So therefore, don't think he did it deliberately. People say he did it deliberately to hurt me. Why did he do that behind my back? Some people say that. But he had many deluded causes of condition that was beyond his control. So don't think it's entirely him or he has intended to do that. He had no intention. He says, Shantideva says it, you know. He had no intention to do that to you, do that to him, do that to anybody for that matter. He just completely out of his depth how things happen. Poor thing. So that's why you should think like that. If you have some enmity to somebody saying, he did this, therefore I'm miserable. Yeah, don't think like that. He didn't know what he was doing, even to himself. Would he like to be in a position to harm you and then he feels very happy and dancing? No. He's probably wish things was a bit in his control, but he wasn't. There are too many causes of condition, and you were party to it, as he was party to it, and there were many other causes of condition. So therefore, meditating on patience has to be rational. You don't practice patience because you're nicer than them, type of thing. Because you have Bodhisattva vow, therefore I must practice, otherwise I will be breaking my vows, I wouldn't get a front row. That kind of attitude is very dangerous. Practicing patience has to be based on understanding, not because you are better than them, like that. You have to understand these problems has no mind of their own to cause on anyone. So therefore, I must depersonalize the problem and not over-personalize the problem and its cause of it. Now, knowing that they have no mind of their own, thinking they will do. You know, when all the causes and conditions come together, it just happens. It just happened. But when those conditions not there, it doesn't happen. So no matter how much you try. So said that which is referred to as the principal substance, that which has been labeled as the self, do not come into being thinking that is how I will arise. There's no such as a primal substance who has this mind of his own saying I will do this and to produce that, and then intently producing those sets of circumstances. There's nothing happened with this deliberation. So therefore, everything happened due to many causes and conditions. When you are able to think of the many causes and conditions, then you will not be wasting your time in thinking this is the cause of the problem, as if a single unitary cause of the problem. That kind of single unit does not produce all the composites of the problem. When the problem is composite, causes has to be also composites, you know. When you see a big house, the house is made out of many things, not just the roof. Roof is maybe tile, but that tile is not the only thing that is making the house. You can see that on the surface tile, but under the tile they have trusses, isn't it? They call the trusses the thing that rests the roof on, you know. And then under that they have ceiling, and then the ceiling is all supported by beams and walls and so on. So so it's not the tile that is the composite. You know, tile is only manifesting on the top, but there are many non-tile that is supporting, holding it together. So that's why it's important not to put a stigma. This is him. This is what he did to me. This is what they did to her. And when you do that, very materialistically. This is what these materialistic, these first world country people always try to look at one thing as the cause of problem and punish that as a bad. This kind of a hunt for the true cause of suffering, which is not people or not things, but due to composite of many factors. Due to composite of many factors. So when you practice patience, you realize everything is composite, all many causes, condition. When you're able to do that, then you're a lot more tolerant. You're a lot more tolerant. Majipan temen te kevan dobakang yula talk to yen given govern your mainos. That which is not manifest is not yet there. That's so what could want to come to be. And permanently drawn toward object, it can never cease from being so. So it's talking about if there isn't anything that is produced, then what is it? What is it? Who is desiring to produce it? And so being distracted, thinking that way, then of course there will also be no cessation. It just goes continuously. Continuously, there is no cessation. It will continue. If the so-called self is permanent, then it should be like the sky. It should be like the sky where there's nothing is happening in the sky. Sky isn't doing anything. Why sky is impermanent? The sky is permanent. Likewise, if the self is like the sky, then it shouldn't be happening anything. Yeah. Indeed, the self if permanent, is certainly impossible like the space itself, and it should meet with the other factors. How should they affect it since it is unchanging? Yeah, that's right. If you think yourself is permanent, then why you are affected by all these things? Because there is no permanent self. That's why you can be affected. Because there is no self, because no permanent self, there is no permanent self, So therefore, when you meet with the factors, it is affecting you in the way you like or when you don't like, because of the nature of that. Says, if when things occur, when something happens, it stays unchanged as before. What influence has action had on it? Well, they say that this affects the self, but what connection could there be between them? Between them is talking about the relationship between the permanent self. If you think the permanent self and the activity that are impermanent, So what's the connection between the permanent self that you think if it is and the action and the action? All of these happen due to other factors. Because of that, it doesn't have any independence. Because the domino cannot have any power to stand on its own because the others are falling on him. Yeah, because the other falling on him, it also is dependent on other dominoes falling. If you know this, you will not be annoyed by objects such as that resemble like the magical appearance. And because everything happens magically, yet you have no reason to become upset by it, because all phenomena seems to be happening due to many other causes, condition, because everything happens to another factor, so that because of that, it has no independence, it has no self-power not to be affected by that, you can't say, oh, my roof is making noise, because the roof is not making noise because by itself. It's because it's raining. The roof doesn't exist independently between you and the rain, because you put it on top of your house. Therefore, there is a roof. So therefore, the noise of the rain is not because there is a roof. It's because you have a roof. If you're not under the roof, who will complain the noise? The tin doesn't say, "Oh gosh, this is so noisy. I shouldn't have been there at all." It's not that the roof is not noisy to the roof. Roof is only noisy to the person who's sitting under it. And who's that? That's yourself. So therefore, the roof is totally not independent of not making any noise, because you put it on top of your head. If the same tin was somewhere else, it wouldn't be making noise here. So the roof has no independent. It is dependent on other factors. So therefore, you shouldn't be annoyed with the roof. Or you shouldn't be annoyed with those people who live on this multi-story high house. People have upstairs making noise. Then they're making angry at upstairs, neighbor upstairs. But the upstairs neighbor it's not their fault, upstairs, because when your roof has become their floor, you are sharing someone's floor. Someone's floor has become your roof. You thought you had a roof over your head, but no, you are wearing someone's floor as your roof. So that's how the people are dependent. All those people live in multi-story buildings. They don't realize how dependent, how noisy the upstairs are, how noisy the next. Not because how upstairs are noisy. Upstairs doesn't make any noise by themselves. But you and they are sharing a one thin layer of floor, thinking it's their floor, but you think it's your roof. But he doesn't think they're walking up and down on someone's ceiling. They think it's their floor. And the thing goes, okay, again, if they have a roof over their head, depending on them. Particularly if roof is leaking, one roof leaks, and then leaks another, and then, so you can see there's nobody have got any power or independence. So you should not be annoyed. So we will not be annoyed at objects that resemble like magical appearances. So you should think everything is happened due to many causes and conditions. Things are not exactly identical as it appears. So when you do that, then this is like talking about you have to be patient with inanimate object like the roof, like the street. People want to be right in the front, right in the street. They say, "I want a house there." But when they're in the street, then they hear all the noise. If they're happy to have a battle axe, maybe they don't get so much noise. That would be good. No, they want to be right in the front, didn't they? They really want to choose this most advantageous place on the main street. We are on the main street. Oh, that's the price will go up. Yeah, main street, you'll get a main noise. See, so there's no independence. Kanki kanshi dojate dobang rigba minshina telatene dunganam gyunchen gyundu mirik me says. Resistance, you may say, is out of place. For what will be opposed by whom? The stream of suffering is cut through by patience. There is nothing inappropriate in wanting that, So there's talking about, what can stop what, and if you don't like resistance, but yet what will oppose by whom, the resistance. If all the sufferings, stream of suffering is cut through patience. Yeah, suffering is cut by patience. Suffering is not cut by not wanting suffering. Suffering is cut by embracing sufferings. When the suffering becomes patience, then the suffering is cut. So there's nothing inappropriate in wanting that. So if you want to practice patience, you have to invite a lot of sufferings. This is suffering embracing practice. Practicing patience is difficult, because it is suffering embracing practice, and majority of people don't have any motivation, intention, or interest to take on sufferings. Because they don't have the caliber, they don't have the fitness, they don't have the moral or intellectual authority to be able to digest that. But those who have the merit to understand that being able to accept the incessant suffering, that all the sufferings, that you accept them, accept the suffering. If you, it's inappropriate. It's nothing inappropriate in wanting sufferings. Why? That is the real cause of patience. So if you don't want suffering, oh, forget it. You'll just get that, because you have to say, I want lots of suffering. I want to practice patience. And then it's nothing inappropriate when you have sufferings. Who will complain suffering? Those who don't have bodhisattva vows. Those who don't have any wanting to suffer for the sake of shielding other sentient beings and benefit sentient beings. Yeah, so that's what they call bodhisattvas are spiritual warriors. They're warriors not because they're too smart to avoid sufferings and they hide the suffering. No, they actually withstand the suffering. They actually want the sufferings. Why? Because they know the sufferings teaches removes their pride, remember? Engenders compassion to other sentient beings, exhausts their own negative karma of the past, and in the meantime, it prevents the suffering smearing on other people. Amazing, So that's why the bodhisattvas, it's not inappropriate for them to want sufferings. Bodhisattvas want sufferings. They're interested in sufferings, because that's what samsara is all full of. Why you born in samsara? Oh, I told there was no suffering. No. There's a lot of suffering in samsara. Where is the place they have no suffering? Yeah, exactly. Where is it? Where is it? Can you find anywhere? In Nirvana, perhaps? But it's if you go 30,000 feet in the sky, it doesn't sound like Nirvana. It's freezing cold out there. The higher you go, more freezing it becomes. So where is Nirvana? Nirvana is one who can snub the impatience of their sufferings. Nirvana actually means to snub the fire, to extinguish the fire. To extinguish the fire of impatience is nirvana. So nirvana is not in the sky. Nirvana is the state of mind where it doesn't resist suffering, but it embraces the suffering. Why? When they embrace the suffering, it removes the pride. It engenders compassion to sentient beings who don't have that skill. And it empowers them to restrain non-virtuous deeds. It makes them to cultivate virtuous deeds. And that's why the patience. And the patience got all this amazing list of virtues, qualities, but it has those things are only cultivated by one who wants sufferings. It's not inappropriate for them to want sufferings. That's what bodhisattvas are well geared, well armed and well armored. I would say well armored by bodhicitta. What is the armor that makes the bodhicittas capable to withstand sufferings, not denying suffering, not fighting with suffering, not fleeing from the suffering, but one who actually accepts the sufferings. One who accepts the suffering builds this amazing, what you call, kind of immune system, if you like. They develop this antibody, health, physical point of view, and whatever the suffering will come, it will not go wasted. That suffering will weaken their own arrogance, strengthen their compassion. It mobilizes them to practice self-restraint, and then it empowers them to do virtue. This is very, very productive. I mean, that's It's amazing. There's no wastage. Nothing is wasted. Everything is recycled. Suffering is recycled. Anger is recycled. And hardships, problem. Your pride has been transformed into humility. Your inability to practice restraint, self-restraint, was actually now empowered to practice tolerance. And that's why it is inappropriate in wanting suffering. For the Bodhisattvas, there's nothing inappropriate to want sufferings. Next time somebody asks you, do you want suffering? You should say yes. And people might say, don't you have enough? Yeah, but I have previously rejected and denied and denounced and tried to flee from suffering. I never put the suffering to good use. Suffering to put to good use is it firstly makes us know that we are in samsara, so the suffering is universal and prevalent, and therefore you don't have developed this strong arrogance saying, I am above suffering, I have precious human rebirth, I have dharma, why should I suffer? Not like that. That's what most people just don't understand. Say someone has suffering, unless they are Buddha and unless they're fully enlightened, even Arhat got suffering, even Bodhisattvas got certain suffering, particularly if they're in human form, and all of them has to have suffering in order to have their pride quashed. So the suffering is good. Suffering is a necessity. When you don't have suffering, you can't help others. When you have suffering, you have opportunity to help others by overcoming your pride, by developing compassion to those who don't have that skill, and by restraining yourself from non-virtue deeds and practicing virtue. So what's wrong with the suffering? Suffering is the cause of the Buddhahood. Suffering is not antithesis of Buddhahood. Suffering is the cause of even becoming Buddha. And when you have become Buddha, it's even more useful that you are available where there is suffering. So that therefore, whether someone is your friend or your foes, if you were to witness them doing something inappropriate, something wrong or something inappropriate, thinking that, they too have fallen victim to those causes and conditions. You should say that. Thinking in that manner, you should empathize. You should empathize. They too have come to the condition like that. Be calm and empathize. This is amazing, isn't it? So next time when you say your father or your mother or someone it did something recently wrong, or you discover recently they did this behind your back or whatever, as soon as you see that, don't say, he did this to me, behind me, he hurt me, all that sort of thing. No, you should, he too has fallen conditioned by those causes and condition, and therefore remain calm and don't react. Why did this to me? He did to me and my brother and sister, and we got hurt because he did this to me. You don't do that. Why? He too has fallen victim to those causes and conditions, which many sentient beings, when they don't have the practice of virtue, when they don't have the fitness to practice virtue of patience, they do. Here again, he has fallen, lost his plot to his desire, lost his plot to his jealousy, and things like that. And then, even though they did terrible things and upset you for a little while, you quickly regain your consciousness, because he too is like me. I did this kind of wrong, he did that kind of wrong. So we are both equally in the same situation. So we are in the same boat. And don't try to see yourself as a victim, himself as a perpetrator, and then try to develop aggression to him. That's not patience. Patience is rationalizing and reasoning why you have to maintain your calm and cool-headedness, so that you don't think he did this to you intentionally. He didn't, Just like the hurricane just fell on your car, doesn't have any intention. People call it bad luck and all of that. I don't know why we insure those things for. Why that's the insurance for, you should say. Oh, thank goodness, that's the insurance. Peace of mind. You should think like that. When you have the insurance of practicing patience, good on you, yeah. Next time, you don't say, he did this to me and my brother. Our life was all destroyed by him. Lots of people think like that in broken families. They blame the father or the mother and saying he did this and therefore he ruined my life. And then you think that your life would have been wonderful if he didn't do that type of thing. This is ridiculously sort of kind of unrealistic. There are many people who don't do that kind of mistake, but there are a lot of other mistakes they make. So therefore, give yourself and your father a break, and don't think, cool. Remain cool-headed, remain calm, and he too is conditioned by those things. And then don't lump him with his one or two mistakes. If you do, you will develop enmity. That's the whole thing. If you think like this, you wouldn't develop enmity, but you would develop compassion. Remember, practicing patience will empower you to develop compassion to your father or mother or brothers, whoever, and then you will be able to practice patience, restrain non-virtue. Yeah, amazing, and lower your pride. See, this is all happening. Now you know how to. Now you really learn something. You learn how to manage your thoughts. And the Buddha was said, you just change your mind. You don't know how to manage your mind. Buddha is thought management teacher. He's a thought management teacher. He's teaching you how to shop around your thoughts. Thought management. What thoughts to keep, what thought to not listen to, what thought to replace, what thought to remedy. And this mindfulness thought is reflexive cognition. Reflexive cognition. In Buddhist logic, there is things called rangrig. Rang means self, rig means awareness, self-awareness. This self-awareness, who you are your own master. Who else can be your master? So don't worship to people with names and robes and titles, thinking they will lead you or guide you. You're fooled. You haven't heard Buddhism. Even the lamas and rinpoches, people with high titles, these are just all cultural titles. This is just like emirate professors and that sort of thing. But the professor got a lot of problems. Professor can't sleep. Professor may be good at professing one thing, but he's still in samsara. So like that, all those people are not your leaders, not your savior. Your mind is, if you have got your mind in your hand. In order that you can get your mind in your hand, you need to pay heed to see this kind of amazing writings, amazing wisdoms. That Shantideva is writing these. He wrote this in 7th century. He says, if they are like-minded people who may read this, it may even benefit them. Even though I have really no such intention, I'm simply writing this to compare my notes to help myself, so that he modestly said that. Now, his modesty has now rewarded. Look at if you digest this verse, this very verse number 33, okay? The very 33, okay? Just think about it. Very, very powerful. Yeah? Very, very powerful, Thus, I read again. Thus, when enemies or friends are seen to act improperly, be calm and call to the mind that everything arises from conditions. Why he has to call for that? Because people don't think like that. People, when they see their father or the mother or the friends or others act improperly, they are not remaining calm. They become agitated. They become ferocious. They call them. They say all sorts of things. They lose their mind. They don't call the mind. They lose their mind. And they think it's all his fault. No, he says that everything arises from conditions. Yeah. Or everything happened from many causes or condition. So don't blame on him, nor to yourself. Very important. Just think that, you too were conditioned to think like that. Now because you have read Shantideva, you have heard these teachings, now you're going to not think like this. Recondition yourself like that. Recondition yourself. Why we listen to teachings? I'm not an entertainer. If you're bored, I can't entertain you. I'm simply reading Shantideva. It inspires me. It makes my mind to be fit enough intellectually and emotionally to think like this. And therefore, whenever I read myself and speak like this, now through the technology, many people can hear it. If they too can think like that, it's amazing. It's the wisdom. It's the insight. It's the hidden wisdoms. This is the real dharma. Real dharma means the hidden teachings, hidden treasures. Yeah, you have revealed a hidden treasure. By lending your ears tonight, you can listen to the word. Next time, your mom or your father or your brother or your husband, or even if they did make a mistake in front of you and your sister were very hurt, weren't you? Oh, you thought, he did this, therefore we got really harmed. You were a moment ago thinking like this, Now, you should think, everything is conditioned by this. And I should not lose my calm and cool-headed head. I should gain my warm heart. I should develop warm-heartedness towards my dad, towards my friend, and whoever they are, and not develop aggression to them, saying they betrayed me, saying they harmed me. You think like that, you become neurotic, you become impatient. You might even have a degree in psychology, but you don't know anything about how to mind your mind. So what's the psychology degree for? This is the real virtue, real psychology of suffering. You now know how not to suffer, by suffering now. You rather suffer now by accepting this, and then you will not suffer long in the future when similar things were to repeat. You will not fall easy victim to it. Why? Because you forbear the suffering now, and next time when things like that happen, you say, I've done that before. It's another condition there, and you will know how to keep your calm-headedness where it is most volatile. Says, if things will happen just as you wish, nobody wish sufferings. Why aren't they not suffering? All the sentient beings who does not want suffering, they shouldn't get any suffering thus far. If just as they want, if things were to happen, then why would the suffering happen? Because they lack independence. They lack freedom. They are controlled, suppressed by their past karma and afflictions. And right now they may not want suffering, but they are not able to determine whether they should or shouldn't suffer, because they have planted many suffering before, caused the suffering before, and now they have to harvest them. You can say, I don't want to have any chili growing in the farm, but last year you did. Last you sow all the seed, and this year you got only chili. You thought you were harvesting tomato, don't you? And they both look red. Yeah, that's right. And this year you have nothing, not a single tomato, but only chili. So this year you have to harvest the chili, and if you want a tomato, don't ever plant chili next time. So you mind your own mind, okay, of what you're planting the seed of. You don't complain the effect. You just choose the cause. They say, wise choose the cause, fool complain the effect. So when you're patient, when you're suffering, say someone is very, very harsh on you or whatever they do, you should if you want a fool, you complain they are treating you like that, and that's what fools do, and that's what fools succeed. Wise, when they are facing that, they say, "Oh, this is the effect of what I've done to others before. So let me endure this. This will quash my pride. This will exhaust my karma. This will increase my compassion and tolerance, and I will be able to practice Dharma. Oh, this is very good." See, the wise will think, why? Wise thinks about the cause. Not only the cause of what he is experiencing now, but what he will be causing by doing this particular reaction now. So he doesn't want to hate because someone hates. He doesn't want it to be violent because someone is violent, because you will born crippled next time because you're violent. You wanted to resort to violence, then next time you will be born crippled, born with a lot of difficulties because you're experiencing the result of what you did. So the wise choose the cause. The fools complain the result. Yeah. Fools complain the result. So don't be the fool. Be the wise who never mind, who accept the result of past, but choose the present response and cause you're creating for the future. Because if things will happen naturally as people want, why people would be suffering? Because nobody wants suffering. On all sentient beings, nobody should be suffering because nobody wants suffering. So, he says, when you're heedless, you become easily exposed to harm, such as a splinter of a small splinter from the thorn has lodged into your muscle, or you have been injured. You've been harmed by the thorns or some weapons, and also in order to gain someone you're attached to, like a woman or your someone you're attached to. If you do, people do all sorts of things in order to get that. It says, yet carelessly, all unaware, they tear themselves on thorns and briars and ardent in pursuit of women and goods. They starve themselves of nourishment. So Shantideva talks about how many people, just for the sake of a partner, and they do all sorts of things. They threaten, they blackmail, they even commit suicide, or double suicide they call it. No, the double suicide, the suicide of whole family, killing all the people in the family. And it's because they want it so much, so bad, they don't know what they're doing. They become so heedless. Usually they wouldn't even like a small pebble go in their shoes. And all of a sudden, a person is stabbing themselves. They're cutting their wrist. They must have lost their mind, poor thing. Usually they wouldn't tolerate even a small little pebble get inside their shoes when they're walking. As soon as they will stop. And they undo the shoes, they try to get rid of the pebble. They're so intolerant of small things. But when they lost their mind, they will do very, very torturous things to themselves to gain some very superficial things. So sentient beings are so lost in the pursuit of happiness. They don't know what is what, and they do this to get that, and they don't do this to obtain this, because they have completely lost. So heedless. So people rise early, stay late, go out in the late hours, I don't know what for, and they can't sleep, and then they stay very late, and then they drink, and they become completely intoxicated, and they're exposing themselves to various dangers and harms, and what are they doing that for? What were they looking for? Are they hungry? Are they full cold? What are they? Why are they like that? Why are they loitering themselves in the late hours in dangerous places? Because they're so heedless. It's cold, but they don't feel the cold. So the place is full of smoke. They don't feel any smoke. They're just so careless, so heedless. And yet they are drinking, and yet they're putting injections in the corridors, harmful to the body, just to attract something. I don't know what they're looking for. They do all kinds of self-harmful things. So they're quite capable, willing to suffer, but for what reason? If you suffer for the sake of benefiting sentient beings, you can. That's true patience. This kind of patience is wasteful. Completely wasteful energy. He says some of them even suffocate themselves, or some even run themselves from the cliff. And some deliberately take poisons so to kill themselves. So now, such conduct by lacking any merit, there are so many who harm themselves. Like we are talking this is of course Shantideva talking during his time. There seems to be people like that, These days, we're talking about virus this, virus that, but number of people dying of suicide is higher than gun violence. Why? Because they don't know how to practice tolerance. They don't know how to discover their mind and to mind it. They don't know how, they lost their mind. And then they deliberately go and do so harmful things. Either they're doing this to harm somebody else, they want parent to feel guilty because they can commit suicide or whatever, or they wanted to make their ex want to feel guilty because you can make them suffer because you commit suicide. The intention is all full of aggression and enmity and greed. There's no patience there, and so one has to practice patience. If you have some difficulties by someone in your life, you should practice tolerance with that, because alternative to tolerance is intolerance, which is self-harm. You couldn't tolerate small harms caused by somebody. You want to do humongous harm for oneself. Why not tolerate the small harms caused by others in order to suppress your pride, in order to engender compassion to your past, as well as compassion to sentient beings, in order to restrain your non-virtuous deeds, in order to practice virtue. All of these things will be accomplished by a small effort of practicing heedful tolerance. Why one would necessarily suffocate or run or jump through a cliff or take poison or do cutting of one's wrist and do a lot of injection or self-harm. Why would one do that? Because you weren't able to tolerate even small sufferings, and yet you're causing humongous harm to yourself. He who has become completely over-controlled, possessed by the affliction, they will go and kill the very person they love most. Yeah, when one is afflicted by negative afflictions, when the affliction seizes them, they kill themselves and the people they love most. Like all the murder, suicide, all the massacres, the thing that happened in Nepal, the royal massacre, regicide. They go regicide, because he was so deluded with his desire and his intoxication and anger, he went and killed his father, mother, sister, and basically all family members without any discrimination. He just shot the gun to everyone. They go and kill the very people they love most. Yeah. So how could they not be the cause of pain and suffering for others? So they don't. When it comes to themselves becoming the cause of suffering, they don't hesitate. When somebody does small harm, without any control on their own mind, you think it's too much. So what kind of world do you want to live in? You want to practice tolerance, you should not give in yourself to afflictions, because then you will save those people you love and those whose well-being you care, including yourself. But when you are so possessed by afflictions, so the practicing patience is how to dispossess the afflictions. How to not become overwhelmed by afflictions, how to suppress the afflictions, so that you actually look after your few loved ones and yourself. You try to take care of them and yourself, and do not cause even slightest harm to yourself and others, and because that's exactly what you want. If you have your mind in your hand, you will do that. But when you have lost your mind to afflictions, you do the very opposite of your liking. You will destroy all things that you went and bought from Davy Jones a couple years ago, couple $1,000. You will break that in a fit of anger. Have you seen that? Lots of people do that, They go to the government, so the public, some kind of television show with the interview, and they're throwing glasses in front of the interview and all that, like a mockery of themselves. And when people have lost their sensibility, they just say bad things, use aggression, close the eyes, open the mouth, and they don't want to practice patience. They've never heard discourses how to practice patience, because they hardly teach practice patience. They say no, zero tolerance. This materialistic society today definitely needs to study this chapter 6 in the school curriculum. Maybe school will be too young, but maybe say at least in high school they should teach these things. They have things called humanity. They have all kinds of studies, but they don't teach any material that's really useful. All those textbooks, it's just like entertaining for 45 minutes. That's it. There's nothing worthy of thinking, thought-provoking. Why the Tibetans risk their life, travel thousands of miles on foot. Some never made it to India. Others who made it to India gave all their gold to Indians, and some never made it back because they died. Others who did come back, they brought this. This is importation. In 7th century, the Tibetans. Now there wouldn't be a single monk in Tibetan Buddhism and nuns who have not memorized these texts. It completely changed the whole, I would say, collective psyche of how the Tibetan people or Buddhists are made to become, they still have lots of karma, but they always try to remember kindness and remember practicing patience. Why? Why we have a place in the world nowadays? Because His Holiness Dalai Lama advocates, teaches this teaching. He rubs shoulders with the many scientists and many intellectual leaders, and he is now making them to form these things as a part of greater education system, whether in the schools or whatever. And we need many educationists, many humanists, many people who actually have a lot of degrees to actually study these materials and try to learn to integrate these things into your teaching, into the various things you teach. From how to cook, how to bake, that also you need a diploma, and to rocket science. You should teach how to manage the mind and human emotions, understand suffering, why suffering happens without nobody wanting it. Why have the world got so much suffering but nobody wants it? Why is there so little happiness and harmony when everybody wants it? When there's no real education, how to train the heart. We're talking about heart education. This is heart education, heartwarming education. This is the kind of universal education that everybody should embrace, because it talks about how to mind our neurosis and afflictions, and most people's suffering is caused by they're not knowing how to handle their negative emotions. Not because of lack of money or food or medicine or house. People got all of that. They got 2 houses. They got all kinds of things. But still they don't know how to mind their mind. So that's why this is what we call inner education, higher education. This is a real higher education because it heightens your consciousness. It makes yourself to feel happy that you're alive, and you can heed to such teachings that make so much sense, that has so much truth in them, how to learn to iron out your own creases of affliction. So try to iron all your afflictions. That would be the best. Ganse nyamo wangyobe, dagdu ni gyan sojeba, tezet teda shenlula numecheba chitr gyur. Yeah, I think we read that already. That's the first number 37. 38 is nyamo kebe teta wur, daso laso shugbala. So, when the affliction has taken you over, people who engage or causing suicide and self-harm, nyingje gyala magena toban yuba chi tatsik, even if compassion does not rise in us in such a time, we can at least refrain from being angry, If you cannot be compassionate, at least refrain from being angry. It would be good to be compassionate, but at least first try to be, at least we can refrain from being angry, Even you can't be compassionate to yourself or to others, at least take the first step. Try to restrain your anger. The practice of tolerance is restraining the anger, knowing its destructiveness, harmfulness, uselessness, and childishness. You should like that. Because if you can restrain your anger, and then that's very good. Once you restrain your anger, you realize it's important to have compassion. You're not only restraining anger for the sake of restraining, you're restraining anger so that you actually are fit to be compassionate to others. Oh, you're restraining anger not to stir it up. If you become so angry, you tell your friend, and then you both agree with both angry, and then you think whatever you're doing will fix the problem. No, you're going to make it trouble. You're going to rock the boat, so to speak. Some people do just that. They thought they're going to help somebody. They have good intention to help somebody, didn't you? No, they don't. They weren't restraining the anger, let alone being kind to others. Because they didn't restrain the anger, they didn't help even themselves, let alone help everyone. How could they help when they are resorting to impatience, reactions, overreactions, and that is not patience? Why on earth you're doing all sorts of cultural Buddhist stuff when you haven't attended that? Why don't you take the real medicine that really can cure your mind? Why you still pretend as you are some practitioner when you can barely identify your own anger and control it? At least restrain it. If you can't practice compassion to others, at least try to restrain it. It will not harm anybody. At least we can restrain from being angry. Because if you restrain from being angry, you will restrain what you say, what you do. When people don't restrain their being angry, their anger is being vented out in form of what they say to other people, and then they do more damaging harm than they allege somebody has provoked them. That's why the sentient beings are so mindless. They wanted to stop this problem, tiny problem there, but they're starting a big problem here instead. How would problem solve problem? Problem doesn't get solved by problem. It escalates the problem. Non-escalation, try to de-escalate the problem, is patience. The question isn't who's right and who's wrong. Question is who can be kind enough, who can be thoughtful enough to practice restraint. And Even if somebody has done their fair share of wrong, but someone has to make sure that their wrong does not spread into you and you make it more wrong. That kind of sanity, that kind of humanity is really what this is all about. How it's not so much who is right, who is wrong, but who can be kind enough to contain that problem from spreading. Who can socially distance that problem? That's what I'm talking about. It's not talking about someone is in a hotel they're isolated, so hotel 12, 14 days, not because they like that hotel so much. You think the Australian government got so much money to everybody to stay in a hotel? The government is so generous, It's trying so hard. I mean, every time I watch those premieres, I can see their deep kindness and deep concern for the state and country they are leading. They have all written all over them lots of worries and concerns. They just wanted to try to contain this problem. Yet people are not heeding to this problem. So restrain. At least restrain. Stay home. Don't think it's some terrible thing for the government to... this is not a martial law. They want to put martial law because they want to put martial law. Not because... They want to save their little citizens who are going into parties, drinking, and then again they go to the restaurant, they ate this, and then they become contracted. Who has to fix all your careless problems if you are not going to be responsible? If you look at the current situation of pandemic, this is worse than pandemic. And the government is not doing anything about people being angry. The government is simply trying to stop a virus. The real cause of the virus is anger, is desire, is ignorance. So the Buddha was well ahead of our time. And Shantideva is a prince of India. Why did he spend so much time writing this? He thought through until he just forgot many meals, until he forgot many classes. He's considered to miss many classes. But he was deeply thinking on these kind of deep teachings. And he was not writing for the sake of a poetry kind of competition. These days people write so that you can outperform them, or so that you are a better writer, or who can sell more copies, all that sort of complete waste of your skill. Write something that is not just entertaining for the five senses. Write something that can wake the fallen heart to anger. This is exactly why these are the curriculum in the monasteries. Why they write this? These are written in gold in some of the monasteries. They have books. This whole Shantideva work is written in gold, ink, because there's so much truth, so much value in them. I actually discovered I had about 10 books on this book. 10 versions. English, Tibetan, root text, commentaries, all 10. I could never get tired of it because such a wonderful, sane information. And Shantideva, rightly, that's what his name is. His name is Shantideva. Deva means God. He's God of peace. His name is God of peace. Because this chapter is chapter on peace. He is actually teaching us to practice patience. You have to give peace a chance. You have to give a chance to restrain your thoughts, restrain your reactions, restrain telling the story about someone harmed you. And then you think that you can inform other people, and you can fix the world, didn't you? That kind of reactionary, childish people who only, who throw dirt in the air and fall most of it on their head. That's impatience. Patience is you have to not idealize anybody, whether they are your parent or your friend or whatever. When you see their problems, you develop compassion to them. They have no freedom not to suffer, not to blunder, because they have certain habits and karma, and they just are not up to it. So you develop compassion. Poor thing, they're conditioned by these things, and don't overreact to it. That is patience. Patience is amazing kind of skill, how to choose, manage, cull, modify thought transformation. It's a transformation of your thought, It's not trying to sort of prove that you're the most patient person. No. You actually hide your patience. You don't boast your patience. You actually lament your lack of patience. You should think like that. It's good, If you wasn't patient to someone, and you didn't quite sort of practice patience, but even though you bottle your feelings, you didn't react to it, but deep down you're so resentful, you're angry, then you at least say, I'm glad I didn't react to it, but I'm still and deep down I'm seething. This is not good. But at least I restrained myself, become angry and outbursting myself. You do that. You will never regret that you restrained outbursting. But you will regret every single outburst you have. After very, very soon, in a couple of hours, you will feel, what a blunder, what a fool of myself that I did that. And then you will keep limping. You will limp rest of life like that, because that's what you are. But if you practice kindness, compassion, they are conditioned by this. They have no intent of their own. They not deliberately want to do that. They are conditioned by causes, karma. I too have my own share. If you think like that, you are controlling yourself and restraining your negativities and remedying your pride, practicing compassion to them, practicing patience yourself, and controlling your negativities, and in the meantime practicing virtue. Amazing. So next time you realize how much you're discovering the Dharma in pile of hardships. Dharma isn't sitting in a retreat, rattling Dhammaru and having a great time yourself away from everybody. That is fine. That's a formal. Real Dharma is like this. When you face all the gunk, there you must not lose your goodness. There you must tolerate. You just restrain, control. So when you do that, then you will conquer the enemies. Remember? Then you will truly conquer your enemies. If it's a nature of childish sentient beings to harm another people, it's inappropriate for me to be angry at childish who harm others. It's like a bonfire, bonfire. So it's the nature of the bonfire. If those who are like wanton children, child being, are by nature prone to injure others, what point is there being angry, like resenting fire for its heat? You can't go to a bonfire and saying hating this heat. You shouldn't go there. You should keep a distance from the bonfire. So if sentient beings like that, why are you always contacting and contacting and getting in contact with people who harm you? Why are you always attracted to that? You should not go near the fire. If you think it's the helpless, difficult sentient beings that are childish like sentient beings, why you be angry with childish sentient beings? Why you go to there? Go to the burning fire. Why you don't keep some kind of respectable distance from such sentient beings and keep away from everyone and stay somewhere that you can mind your own mind? That's what the retreat is for. You don't retreat because of fear. You retreat because you don't want to go near the fire because it burns. Yeah. Remember, you're very combustible, So there's no fire that's fire, no? Fire is only burning the combustible. So if you become so impatient by that, soon you will become the fire. So what's the difference between bonfire and a combustible one always get pulled out towards the fire? You will be inseparable from the fire in a minute. You wouldn't even know that you are the fire. Honde kyun de lowula, semje ranshin ngebadang. So this number 40. And if the faults of sentient beings are fleeting, fault of sentient beings and fire are fleeting, which is very important. Everything is impermanent. Not that the fault and problems are fleeting. Semje ranshin ngebadang, but sentient beings actually have a basic goodness, Their fault are fleeting. Their qualities, their basic goodness are certain. Their basic goodness are good, contingents. It's likewise senseless to resent sentient beings because of their faults, as one as will be angry at the sky for having clouds. Maybe some people say, they're crook today because they look at the sky and cloudy day. Quite a lot of people do that. Oh, terrible. That the weather's terrible, they call it. I mean, weather's not terrible. Weather's not terrible. You are stuck in a little corner. That's the problem. If you are somewhere else, weather's not terrible. If you're above the clouds, it's not cloudy. So people become angry at the cloud, thinking, and then angry at the sky. But sky doesn't know what you're talking about. Sky is always clear. Clouds is not a part of the sky. Cloud is fleeting, adventitious nature. Likewise, you should treat sentient beings as a sky and their problems as cloud. And they think, this too will pass, As long as I don't resent their cloud-like, unfortunate sort of weaknesses and problems, and the sky will return to its good, glorious, bright light. So treat all sentient beings as a bright sky, and their fleeting problems, their emotional problems, all of those things as fleeting clouds. When you can do that, see another reason of patience. That's why you got to know everything is impermanent. You don't lump the person and his problem as he's always that. People stigmatize each other. Oh, he did that to me last time, and then you think you never want to have anything to do with it. There's a lot of people think like that, and then they make their problem kind of cemented, because they don't want to change the attitude about the person, did they? They think that person, they don't want to go to Belconnen ever because it's been cloudy yesterday, and you're never going to go to Belconnen because it's a cloudy place. Oh, you're never going to go to Bateman's Bay one weekend because when you went, it was so wet. There are many days Bateman's Bay has a bright weather there, don't think, also don't go always to Queensland thinking it's always bright, beautiful, There was a time Queensland was no-go area. They didn't want anybody come because everybody who come there is a fallen victim to some problems. So how good is it? They say, bright today, perfect another. I don't think so. The weather is never like that. Bright today, but cloudy tomorrow. That's probably more likely it. So on the day it's cloudy, don't think it's too bad. It will pass. Yes. When you look at the weather forecast in your phone, it says around 12 o'clock, there's a 20% chance, there's a little bit cloudy, but by 2 it will be very bright. Just look at that. Then you will lift your spirit like that. You should look at the weather chart of your mind. Oh, right now I'm a little bit crooked, but it will not stay long. Right now he's a little bit crooked at me, but it won't last long because he basically loves me. He's my father. He cares about me more than he really harms me. You think like that. It's true also. See? Then you realize the childish sentient beings have all fault. You yourself included, by the way. By the way, you're not exceptionally free because you can't. If you're thinking like that, you're obviously not enlightened. He always is among the deluded crowds. So if you're deluded, you will only see deludedly. That's the whole thing. So unless you will care to change your delusion, it will always be cloudy wherever you go. So don't carry those conditions in yourself that makes yourself always attracting that kind of weather. Next time, even when somebody's angry to you, you will not see that. Oh, this is fleeting nature of sentient beings. That every time sentient beings expose their negativity to me, it engenders my compassion, my self-restraint power. I remember my Bodhisattva vows. The sentient beings are so helpful for me to become the real companion for me to remember what I'm about to forget. When you think like that, they have not become fleet problem, have they? They become teacher. They become the real Buddha. They can empower you to regain your consciousness that you are almost forgetting. This is talking about the stick, yeah. Although indeed it's the stick that hurts me, I'm angry at the one who wields it, striking at me. So this is talking about the example of someone hitting you with a stick, If someone hit with your stick, we usually do not get angry with the stick, do we? But we think one who hit us is not the person, not the stick, but the person, if you are angry at the stick, not angry at the person who hit you, rather than the stick that hit you, so then but he's driven and impelled by his anger. So it is his wrath that I should be angry. You should be angry at his anger, not the person who's angry. So like the stick and the person who hurled it, a person who's angry at it. So you should be angry at the anger of somebody else rather than the person who's angry at. See, this is again using the logic, So you can look at that like say if you hit a dog with a stick, dog with a rock, dog will go after this rock, dog will bite the rock. But human beings usually go after the person who hurled. But the people who heed to Shantideva, they should not go after the rock nor the person who hit it. They should go after the anger. When you go after the anger, and then you will discover your anger. You cannot destroy hatred by hatred. Hatred cannot destroy hatred. So therefore, if you go after hatred of somebody hatred causes you hatred, then you have to overcome your hatred before you can overcome somebody's hatred. Hate doesn't overcome hate. Hate overcome by patience. You have to be patient with their hatred, and then that overcomes your hatred. Amazing. This is double positive. By restraining anger, you conquer your anger, and you practice patience. So there is no point going after the person or the stick, nor after the person's hatred. You go after your hatred. When you go after your hatred, what you end with? You have no hatred. You have patience. When you have patience, whatever, you have compassion to the other. No? Do you have to be right? No, it's not important. Do you think that you have to prove they're wrong? No, that's not important. You don't have to prove who's right and who's wrong. You have to be kind. You have to be compassionate and effective to solve the problem. To solve the problem, bring the solution. Don't make the problem duplicated. Don't exacerbate the problems. That's what deluded sentient beings do. Deluded sentient beings do. So with this, we will conclude here, verse number 41. Thank you very much, everyone. There's a lot of amazing wisdom there, and in the writing of Shantideva. What a wonderful way to think like this and become conversant in this line of thinking. What I call this, when you become very literate in thinking like this, then you can read your mind, and then you can read mind. You don't have to read people's lips and become swayed by them. You can read your own mind, and you can learn to not think a particular way, but think a particular alternate way. This is patience. Patience is managing certain negative thoughts, restraining them, and controlling them, and practicing more efficacious, more wonderful, liberative, useful, calm-headed mind, and then develop a warm-hearted thing towards sentient beings. Be the hard on the cause of the problem, be soft to the sentient beings. That is patience. Because when you're soft to the patience, you become compassion. You're hard on the problem because you are wise. You're wise because you're able to see the cause of suffering as cause of suffering. You sentient beings are just conditioned of the suffering. You don't blame the conditions. You just go after tackling the cause of the suffering. When you're able to distinguish the cause and conditions, you rather prefer to discover the cause rather than the conditions. The conditions are completely volatile, completely changeable. Condition changes dramatically once you recognize the cause. When you don't recognize the cause, then conditions to escalate the problem. But when you when you catch the snake from the head, no matter how long the snake is, it's not a real problem. It's like that. He may curl around your leg, he may try to bind, but once you got his head, it can't do much. Likewise, you got to recognize the cause of the suffering. You don't complain the conditions. Everything else is a condition. The most important cause that we don't get to know is our own ignorance. It's our own naivety. In order to remedy this ignorance means absence of knowing, we have to develop the ways of knowing that, the ways of apprehending the ignorance, and not make it operational. We wanted to jam the ignorance. Okay? We wanted to jam the ignorance. We wanted to scramble the ignorance, if you like, in the military terms. We want to scramble the ignorance so that it does not go and hit on anybody. Just like scramble, they call it in military air force. They talk scrambled an enemy airplane. So you scramble the ignorance. It's knowing how to do that is the patience. You do that out of compassion. You do that out of your self-restraint. And amazing. When you restrain the negativities, then you're free to practice patience. When you don't restrain the negativities or reactions and bad-mouthing and overreaction, then you all your energy has been wasted in that direction. You didn't achieve anything. So it's very difficult to get Dharma. When you're lost in the Dharma in form, you miss the real point. When you really get to hear the Dharma very well, they say, I heard it. That's what Ananda said, thus I have heard it once. When he heard the Buddha, that's it. He doesn't have to hear again. It is so much like carving on the rock. It never goes away. So when you read and listen to Dharma, you need to get the effect of Ananda hearing the Dharma. He said, thus I've heard. Ever since I heard that, it's all changed for me. I will not look ever like that anymore. I know exactly how to be hard on the root cause of the problem, the ignorance. I have to be gentle to sentient beings. That's what the kindness matters. Why kindness matters? Because sentient beings are the suffering. When you don't have kindness, because they say they hurl this rock to him, saying his fault. They read all this. They know all the sentient beings are already injured, and you're throwing stone at each other. So you have to go and attend to the sentient beings, nurse the sentient beings, and tackle what is the real problem. Real problem is self-grasping, grasping to our righteous wrong view as right view. And that's the problem. It's not important that you are right. And then it's particularly not important that you're so right, you see the wrong of others only, but you lack any compassion to make a difference. So what's your righteousness for? Huh? Only to point finger at something as the root, as the problem. That's not Buddhism. Definitely not Mahayana Buddhism. I don't think Theravada Buddhism will also advocate that. I don't know what kind of Buddhism. People who are thinking Judeo-Christian way, but think they are learning Buddhism, but they still hasn't. They have to reset their mind if they want to be Buddhist. They can't keep their kind of black and white, kind of dualistic way of looking at things. Got a lot of Judeo-Christian views are like that, isn't it? Heaven and hell and God and devil and that kind of dualistic. Right and wrong. That's why Buddha was so well ahead of his time. He's teaching a middle way. We don't call the word middle way just for sake of calling it. Just have some kind of gut to understand why Buddhism is called middle way and why we should try to practice that. You have to reset your mind if you really want to digest Dharma. You can't keep. You might have physically, you might be biologically, culturally, you are white and you're Caucasian and whatever, but you've got to reset your mentality if you really want to understand and rejoice and relish the Dharma. Then you will really find refuge in it. Otherwise, you're worshipping some savior from Tibet or some lamas or high lamas and they save you. See, you're still Judeo-Christian. You're still looking for a savior. Buddha said, I do not save anybody. I do not wash anybody's sin with the holy water. I cannot physically transfer, you to anywhere else, nor can transfer my knowledge into you. I simply teach you the way. So the Dharma is the teaching. Dharma is not of getting into dualism. So lots of people still in the West, because the Dharma is relatively new in the West, they still are steeped into their Judeo-Christian value system to which they have very fundamental argument, and they still haven't parted from that at all. So they have to brainwash totally. They have to reset your mind before you think you're Buddhist, let alone a monk or a nun. Goodness sake. It's too easy to say that. That's why people like many Buddhist teachers from countries, they should dissuade those people from taking on too seriously without actually understanding things. They should know some of the fundamental teaching like this, that they actually understand the practical application for how much humane and how much truth these teachings are. And to do that, you've got to philosophize. You've got to use reason why you follow the Dharma, why you take refuge. Just merely changing your dress and saying some Buddhist prayers a month, that doesn't make you Buddhist. That's some of the movies people no, these. Then you will be duplicating another Lamaism. His Holiness Dalai Lama is requesting people to practice Buddhism not out of blind faith, but with the 21st century. But people are in 21st century, but thinking 15th century, medieval Christianity way, and they're thinking Buddhism is that, with some different concept. That's not Buddhism. So we have to really have a good responsibility to understand Shantideva's thoughts as being amazing, way to awaken our heart. Do not let the heart to fall asleep. You think you know everything intellectually up here, but that's not much value if it doesn't go down to your heart. And devotion, love, compassion, and this kind of some of the most salient features of Dharma is most important. Don't turn Buddhism into another kind of a religious sectarian mob. That world had too many. It doesn't need another one. This is to liberate everyone from those fixations. And that's why this chapter is very highly valued. So with that, we will conclude here. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for listening. Please don't forget to share. Remember that. Other people in your group will hear that, listen to that, and that's how people discover Dharma. And in this pandemic era, we need to share these teachings as widely as possible, because they can receive in their Facebook and YouTube. Everybody can access it, and so hope that's happening. Thank you very much, everyone. And now I'll do the short dedication merits. May the blessings of the teaching that we have heard and listened make us to deeply heeding to these teachings. Because these teachings are Buddha's teaching. This is not even Shantideva. So Shantideva is only writing it, but all these teachings are in the perfection of wisdom. This is the Bodhisattva's way of life is what the Buddha lived and became enlightened as a result of this. So Buddhas became Bodhisattva for many, many lifetimes, and so Buddha taught it. Okay, even the writing by Shantideva is all. He says at the very beginning he wrote this, as the way of the past bodhisattvas, so the futures can follow it, so the present can advocate it. So therefore, is the Buddha's teachings. And so let's not just ascribe to some figures in India. Buddha is the origin, not Nalanda. It's Buddhism. That's why I go down. Otherwise, called Nalandism. Nalanda was built only in 8th, 9th century. It probably prospered around that time. Built a couple of centuries before. So definitely, it was built way after people like King Ashoka and many people. So it's quite late. Buddhism was 500 century before Christianity. So these are the very, very original teachings of the Buddha. If you read it in a classical text, you will find them. But Shantideva has put together like this. So there's a lot of merit in discovering these teachings. You can't fathom and appreciate, understand everything in one listening. You've got to read those things, and those comments. Some of the root texts are still translations are still in the infancy stage. So they slowly things have become much more clearer when the translations improve and the commentaries are translated, and then I would say published and so on. So learn to read Shantideva's Bodhisattva's way of life. The merit of listening to this will enable everyone to boost their loving kindness, compassion, and tolerance towards each other, and particularly towards your past. Be gentle towards yourself, and make friend with your past. And don't alienate yourself or anybody from your wrong views about some things in the past. And that will be a more important merit. So the bodhicitta or the altruism is only altruism, not because we say the prayer of altruism, but we actually keep believing the bodhicitta and checking how the bodhicitta is to be practiced. A small act of kindness, to be patient and to be tolerant and to be thoughtful and to be self-controlling and to be very gentle and not react. And these are the real Bodhisattvas' way of life. Janju Zemjo Rinpoche Maje Banama Jeje Jeba Nyamba Mebaye Gone Gondo Bewajo. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.